Yeah, I see that the numbers are ticking, but I think we will get started as it's 10 o'clock. So hi everybody, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Malin Bodolla. I'm responsible for marketing at Litium. And this is one webinar in a series that we're doing to inspire and give tips and tricks within digital commerce. And today we will talk about digital sales in a global environment. Maybe some of you are going global, or maybe you already started, but I think this will give you tips and tricks either way. And with me today, I have Dan Andersson and David Nolander from one of our solution partners, Columbus. And they have a lot of experience within this and have worked with many customers going global. So they will be able to give you a lot of inspiration and tips today. And just some practicalities. I will soon hand over to Dan and David. They will talk about 25 minutes or something, and we will have a Q&A session in the end. So if you have questions, please write them in the question section in your panel to the right, and we will address those in the end of the session. And also we will share the recording, so if you miss something or you want to share it with your colleagues later on, you can easily do that. We will also share the PowerPoint, the slides, so you will get that tomorrow or later today. But first, just a very short presentation about who Litium are. So Litium is a scalable platform, e-commerce platform, working with mid-size and large customers in the Nordics that sell online all over the world. And we work with about 230 customers. And on the next slide, you can see some examples with customers that we work with. So we work both with B2B companies and B2C companies. And here you can see the spread, everything from pure manufacturing companies, wholesale distributors, to consumer brands, e-tailers, and customers that is going direct to consumers. But today it's not about Litium, it's about you, and to give you good tips and tricks about going global. So with that, I will hand over to Dan and David. And I will, don't forget to write your questions in the panel, so we have those in the end. Yeah.
Thank you, Malin. So I'm Dan Andersson, working for Columbus, and beside me, I have my colleague
David Nolander, working as a senior advisor at Columbus in the strategy team.
We will focus on the presentation, so I will close down the video in a moment. So just wait a minute here. There, I'm closing that down. Today, we all live in a constant change. As to be companies, you are facing a lot of challenges, but those challenges can also be seen as huge opportunities. And that is what this webinar is about, an opportunity. Because the customer is changing. We have gone through, or actually going through, a huge demographic change. Customers are ready to engage with us anytime, anywhere, and it requires a personalized and seamless experience. Their expectations are increasing, need of convenience, that our apps are easy to use, frictionless, and non-breaking customer journeys, online and offline. Customers are more demanding, and their geographic market has changed from nearby to global. And old behaviors, old local behaviors, I should say, are replaced by new global behaviors. Our offers are usually changed from product to services. We see new business models and disruption. We are cutting out the middlemen, selling direct to consumer, using marketplaces to grow. And we are seeing an increase in sharing economy. And we are doing business everywhere today. And we will also see the rise of cloud utilization, giving us processing power, scalability, and storage, and have opened up for a lot of new possibilities and to actually be everywhere to a fraction of the former cost. We also see AI and automation giving us possibility for personalization wherever the customer are. We also see a data explosion in the visibility on customers, in business activities, in the global marketing trends. And today, digitalization is everywhere. It's omnichannel, it's in sensors, and we are always connected wherever we are. And the data, and this change is moving very, very quickly. We now see companies like Tesla is changing our way of driving. We see how Apple and Samsung are pushing each other in the past to develop new powerful mobile phones. And mobile phones have changed the way we live. It's only 14 years since the first iPhone was launched, and today we always have our phones in our hands, and they often dictate our daily habits. This and other technology developments are catalysts for change for all of us, and not at least for our customers, because their way of shopping or buying or laying an order is changing. It's a clear behavior change, and we have a constant expectation of an experience, regardless or whether we are to listen to music on Spotify, see a movie on Netflix, pay bills with our banking solution, buying foods online, need assistance when we have a problem in our working life. And even so, e-commerce in B2C is growing faster than expected. PostNord expects that the e-commerce in Sweden stands for 25% of the total trade in 2025 and 40% by 2030. That is an increase of 10% from estimation that Nordea did just 3 years ago. And the expectations are changing from customers. You need to get all the important foundations in place, offer services that are fast, comfortable, simple. But when you go global, everyone has to be treated as local customers as well. In most cases, you have to have content that are localized. Payment services has to be adapted to the local market. Product catalog may have to be adapted to the local market. Regulations has to be followed. Best practices shouldn't be ignored. And the modern B2B buyers are not only more comfortable with the digital services, so they actually prefer them today. And perhaps more importantly, the amount of time they are willing to spend with without ever interacting with a seller has increased enormously. The traditional model of selling goods through wholesalers and retailers is under pressure like never before. And we are seeing new type of businesses starting up. We see new business models. We are seeing new competitors entering our traditional markets because it's easier, it's cheaper. We have less barriers or to establish themselves in markets and in new countries. And David, you have some knowledge about this, and could you give us some example of this?
Yes, there are multiple examples, and we will only mention a few. And some of you will know the brands that we associate with those models. We have, for example, the rise of subscription, exemplified, as Dan mentioned, by Netflix and Spotify. The motivator is here to pay along a scale of access for a service rather than buying it upfront. This is also impacting B2B companies where recurrent revenue is a more important KPI today than the traditional upfront sales. Then we have the ownership model being replaced by the usership model. Here we have e-scooters, for example, as a service. As you all already know and love or hate them, but it's there. The same model is being applied to cars. And here we will for sure see an evolution of self-driving cars accelerating that. And in the software space, we see Amazon Web Service, for example, managing large-scale computing as a pure usership business. Then we have the growing demand for self-service, a win-win situation for both customers and companies. Here, great technology minimizes, for example, the need for a well-staffed customer service department and so on. An example here would be Uber and Amazon, where virtually no interactions to a human is done between them and the customer. Another is the product as an experience and being included in a larger ecosystem. The benefit here is, of course, loyalty and lock-in effect. Example would be, for example, when you buy a Sonos speaker, you are most likely to buy another one for the next room because it just works. Or buying a Tesla, of course, where you're both a part of a movement, but also experience something that is both cutting edge digitally as physically. And last but not least, the last mile revolution, an ongoing transformation that has certainly been accelerated by the pandemic. It's a transformation from the need of physical locations into services and goods right to your doorstep. Here we have once again Amazon with their Prime program. They are working relentlessly to cut down every single second between your ordering and the delivery to your hands. Also, of course, as you all know, Foodora and the various global versions of food deliveries that has been accelerated during the pandemics. These are just some examples. Many of them impact more and more industries, also cutting over to B2B. And most important here is to be curious, open-minded, and stay vigilant. But let's talk more about what you can do to use this.
We also see manufacturing companies embracing new technologies to sell and distribute their own goods directly to consumers. I don't have any Swedish or Nordic figures, but almost 3 out of 4 companies in the UK now sell directly to consumers. And over the past 5 years, sales direct to consumers have increased by 55%. The manufacturers who have invested in such sales strategies see gains in 45% have seen increased revenue, 38% see an increased growth in their customer base, and 32% seen increased speed to market. So without physical stores or middlemen, the direct to consumers companies have a very low cost, higher profits, and better control of customer data. David, do we have some example of this approaching direct to consumer?
Yes, one example, and we stay in the UK here, is Jackson Food Group, a company known for selling high quality ingredients and luxury food products. Their customer base has traditionally been restaurants and well assorted shops and supermarkets, but due to the pandemic, they have invested in new models, business models directly to end customer. Behavioral changes that we see here is the rise of fine dining at your home instead of going to a restaurant. Here they are leveraging a model like last mile subscription to both reach directly to the customer's door, but also to have recurrent revenue. But this is just a local example. So if we go to, and it's all about scaling your business globally, new markets has traditionally means high barriers of entry, but today it's easier than ever. It's getting to a point where it's nearly as easy as flipping a switch. This is enabled by new technology, as we will touch upon later, but also changes to regulation, and we will come back to that as well. Different approaches exist, of course, visualized here in the slide. Some is running the market with local content and local assortment, having a more direct market, but through the same platforms, or selling from one to many, meaning that you have the same content, you have the same assortment, you have the same language and the same currency, but availability to sell and ship to multiple countries. Or having a more regional approach, leveraging the common markets that we see arise in the EU, of course, but also in the North America and other parts of the world. An example of a global brand doing this is Toyota Material Handling. Already they are a global brand, but in a very local sense. And from their headquarters in Mjölby, they are clearly doing a big transformation journey into digital business that is truly global. The site today serves over 40 local sites, plus a worldwide site. And today you can do most of the digital business that used to be face-to-face businesses. So you can configure very complex trucks online. You can rent them short-term, also lease them long-term. You can resell your already used truck through the reconnaissance program. You can buy spare parts and book maintenance. And they also focus on the new business models with the service as subscription and long-time partnerships with their ecosystems with IoT and so on. And all of this is a part of their vision of Industry 4.0. A really interesting evolution.
Yeah, Toyota has come far ahead in their transformation, and some of you may be not that far, and we'll talk about that journey as well in a few minutes. But then we have marketplaces, which is worth a webinar in itself, as I see it, David. It has really become a quick and convenient addition or alternative to expanding your own e-commerce into new markets, maybe even replacing existing distribution channels. David, you have been working a lot with the different kind of marketplaces, etc. Could you elaborate on this?
Yes, there are a lot of examples. As a matter of fact, just in Europe alone, today there's over 300 marketplaces. And when you compare that to the fact that it was only 10 years ago, you're trying to grasp how big of a market force this is. But adding marketplaces in our overview is logical. So why marketplaces? Well, controlling your brand in those channels is one thing. This means the information in the channel, the offering, the presentation, the price, all that adds up to the consumer perception of your brand. It's also reaching a new point of contact. More and more transactions go directly through the marketplaces. And these customers will probably never consider or even visit your website. It's also a great opportunity for startup in a new market and has made it even easier. Many marketplaces can help you with the order fulfillment locally. They already work within the local regulations that you have to follow, and customers are already there, meaning that you don't have to do the normal traffic directions. So if you look closer into this bubble, we can see that, as we showed, there are many marketplaces to consider. And what to choose is vary from business to business and company to company. There are both general marketplaces, also specialized options. You can either integrate to them directly or use a broker to connect them quick and easy. As an example for this setup shown in this slide, it's actually a vehicle aftermarket division at SKF. Not only do they serve B2B and B2C customers directly from their website over multiple markets on multiple continents, but also multiple marketplaces all over the globe. So SKF is not only aiming to deliver high quality products, but also aiming to have them available at the right time and the right place. So manufacturing company that is truly leveraging new technology and adapting to new business models.
Just a question here. Now we're talking about different kind of companies, but I see that they are growing slowly. So they start and then they test and they start for a new market. Or how do you see that is usually done, David?
Normally, it's a growth and test principle. So with the barriers that we see today, and we will touch upon regulation, we see that the entry is quite much lower than it's ever had been.
Okay.
So example, when we talk about regulation that we said we will come back to, it's looking at the EU, for example, and their digital single market strategy, where they're both strengthening the consumer rights and leveling the playing field. And we will see, for example, much of this work has already been done with all the examples that we already adapted to, like GDPR, the e-commerce directive that was a couple of years ago. And all of this, of course, benefits the Nordics, especially because we are traditionally a market with very low barriers and high consumer rights. But there's still much more to be done. What we see coming up in the horizon is the implementation of the one-stop shop directive, already in place this year, where the reporting of VAT is much easier than it used to be. We see the sales of goods directive coming up, which once again will strengthen the consumer rights, but to the playing field that we think will benefit the Nordic actors. And also coming up is the Digital Service and Digital Market Act, which is a way of the EU to put more control over the big tech companies, leveraging so that smaller companies can actually compete more fairly. So yes, even in the regulatory side, things are moving really fast.
That was about regulations. How do you see new technology services making it easier to go global?
Well, technology today is kind of like buying an app from the App Store. Apple used to say there's an app for that. Today we can say there's a service for that. And just to mention a few, if we look at multi-channel commerce, you have, as the company presented today, Litium. You have global payments, exemplified by Agent. You have multi-channel shipping or multi-market shipping, presented here as Nshift, formerly known as Unifound, but also automated marketing and personalization. Example is Voyado or all the other marketing automation tools available. And multi-marketplace rollout supported by Channel Engine, for example, as a marketplace broker.
Today, we also have data everywhere. It has become easier to gather global marketing data, so much more easier to do the analytics, create dashboards, and really make decisions based on the data. Meaning, what kind of tactics should you use through the customer journey? maybe in different kind of markets. And the advice here is probably that you should do much more analytics and use your data more than you do today. And that you should have maybe a team, a growth team that are focusing on the insights and the KPIs, focusing on creating value through the customer journey. Too often we see that you put all your efforts on establishing a first frame from a text perspective and forgets about the ongoing work regarding driving traffic, create conversions, and retention based on your data. However, tech and infrastructure is also important as you grow. Local or global maybe doesn't matter. The important thing is that you are not working in silos as you grow. Maybe you start, as you see on the left side, with a smaller infrastructure, but you have a desired state that are a little bit bigger. And you have to have this infrastructure that supports your reach when you're moving from this first state to a desired state. From a data perspective, meaning that you have to have your customer data, your PIM data, your PIM information in one place where it's reachable for all apps and touch points on all markets, usually in a data layer. We also see data model standardization in a higher degree. Standardization in verticals like you have TechDoc, you have ValueDo. We see standardization between vendors of solutions like data models for how you handle customer data profiles, so you can switch that between different kind of application. All in all, this makes it easier when we are thinking about challenging ourselves to take the opportunity and go to a new market. And today, digitalization is everywhere. And this adoption of a technology opens up for global business opportunities. As we shop, buy, add an order from everywhere, and your customer channels and touchpoints will certainly increase. And you will have to support different kind of touchpoints in different kind of countries. Maybe not just marketplace, and even if that is like an easy way to grow, but also in form of social media and other kind of touch points. So there are almost no barriers to be a global customer today, but there are certainly less barriers to have global customers, at least from a technology perspective today. But again, you have to have an infrastructure that works with you and not against you as you grow.
So the question is, how do you take your first baby step towards the global desired state?
And that actually depends on where you are on your maturity today, where you are on the maturity ladder today. The maturity model spans usually over 5 steps, from companies that today barely operate and appear online to companies that are very far ahead in their digital transformation. And Litium has a recent report regarding to maturity ladder, and the report states that a whopping of 76% are in the initial 3 phases of their digital journey, which means that you only deliver a very basic customer experience and maybe operates mainly locally. To take the next step, you have to identify where are you today and what kind of initiatives you have to take to move on that ladder. So to finalize or summary of this part, so we will give you 5 guiding principles, and those principles are not the actual initiative that you have to take, because that is depending on where you are on your journey. But those guiding principles will certainly help you to take steps on the ladder as a foundation. And one thing is that you should be really becoming true customer centric, really understand the customer goals, their needs, obstacles, to understand what you need to do in what order on each market. The importance is to demolish the pyramids and silos everywhere in your organization. And you should think growth and value created activities and master how you do it through the full customer journey. Then we have technology foundation. You should think platform architecture that allows to scale, change, and this with speed. You should have control over your data. You should also think big, so you're able to grow, so you're not outgrowing your platform like in the first or second or third year. But start small and grow.
Yeah, and work agile, but still think long term. The ability to adapt, confidence of change, organization to be flexible, try to move to a more flexible strategy and a flexible organization, be innovative, but be able to pivot quickly. Mentality here is test, fail, and learn.
And as we have the goal of growing, also secure digital capabilities, recruit and secure competences at both like a strategic, tactical, and operational level. Just one thing that we mentioned here was like this grow and growth team that actually working on the customer journey level, taking knowledge from the insights and actually act on that repeatedly, and that from an agile standpoint. And I think that's it. That is our like main 5 guiding principles.
Yes. So with that, we have time for some questions.
So Malin, over to you. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we have a couple of questions, but please, everybody who's listening in, enter more questions in the panel. So one question is, let's see if I can phrase this right, but in customer dialogues, they hear different wordings. It can be order portal, customer portal, e-commerce, etc. What is your view on this, or what is the difference?
I see it as depending on where you are as a company, because in the beginning, when you are in the beginning of your transformation journey, you usually talk about we would like to create like a product web. We want our products to be shown on the web. Maybe not that you actually can order them, but just like you can browse them, find them, and then you can order offline. In the next step, you usually start talking about you want to sell online, and then you start talking about like an order portal and maybe e-commerce. But then as you are growing, you're starting talking about unified commerce, digital commerce, where you are broadening the scope, that you also start to look into more how we're actually attracting more traffic to our site, focusing on converting and then retention. But then lately, during the pandemic, we are also seeing that there is a larger, more people or more companies that would like to increase the self-service. And that is when you start talking about customer portals as well.
Yes.
Do you have something more than that, David?
I think that sums it up greatly. Many B2B companies start first shifting their order capabilities from being, fax, emails, call-ins, to have an order portal.
Focusing on their existing customers.
Focusing on existing ones. If you go to consumer as well, then you have to think about digital commerce, because then you have to attract customers through this new channel. And looking at the trend we see today, the loyalty to your existing companies is very reliant on their ability to self-serve themselves, and that's why the portal aspect of it becomes a more important thing.
Yeah. So it's very much about maturity, and if I should say something more, in the beginning when you're creating an order portal, it's not maybe so connected to your other systems, but when you start talking more about e-commerce, unified commerce, and digital commerce, it's also when you are starting to integrate it with your marketing automation, your CRM, you're connecting online and offline, your leads flow, your leads generation as well. So I think it's about maturity, Molly.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a great answer, and it explained a lot. Going into another question then, it's about translations, what to think about here. And I think the question is more if you want to be scalable, but still if you need to translate everything going global, it's a lot of work. What do you need to think about here? If you can give some tips.
Yeah, what we see today is that normally in the B2B space, if we start there, there's a higher acceptance of using single language, single currency. So you see that, for example, in Europe, English is a common accepted language because those are mostly the industry standard. And also Euro, for example, as a global currency. This is actually a place where you see B2B being far ahead to B2C, because B2C is still a little bit more reliant on the perception of localized. So you prefer to shop in your language with your currency, but even that has been accelerated to breaking the barriers. So you can actually start and come a long way just serving the same products with the same translations with the same currency to multiple markets. But on the other hand, to really grow over time, you have to adapt to the local markets in some way. And there's a lot of tools that you can utilize and technologies you can utilize to go from step A to step B.
And especially, it's maybe like if we're looking into product information, when you're like adding information into your PIM system, we are seeing customers that are working then with cut and paste with translation agencies, etc. When you are like growing in this area, you should like maybe do an integration too into translation agencies. So you are more sending the information from your PIM and you receive it back into the PIM as well. So it's actually you get an efficiency in the translation. And as David is also saying, when you go into new markets, you have to look at the especially when you also go into Asia. If you go to China, for example, they have other ideas about content. Usually you have much more product information, product content on their pages than we usually have on the Nordic pages, for example. So it could be also a difference in the need of content, the amount of content that you actually need in different kind of markets.
Okay, good. Good information. And also, I mean, I encourage people to test and use the data to see what actually works, going back to that. Another question that we kind of always get is about roles and responsibilities. You were touching a bit on this, but from your experience, where do you see the responsibility for going global? What roles do different departments have in this? What would work best?
And I don't think that there is one answer on that, and there's certainly not one kind of organization and role model that you should choose, because it also depends. It depends on how you are selling, how is your organization looks today. Are you selling through distributors, or do you have your own sales channels, or whatever, how it's look like. But just for giving one example, if you are like, we can see that, how should I say, it could be that you have like for a global part that maybe have the main responsibility for setting the main stage regarding to growth, digital marketing, driving the development, owning the PIM and those kind of things. That is like a global responsibility. But then if you have market part in different kind of, for example, in Europe, they maybe then be responsible for all the marketing, like driving traffic, creating the content, and etc. But then it also could be that the global organization is delivering marketing packages. So they are creating like information for social media, for Facebook, or for the web that the local market can utilize. So you actually get some like a little bit of a content fabric in that, and efficiency and productivity. And certainly there has to be a very the global and the local areas have to work very close and transparent, and also like to try to create some kind of collaboration between the market companies as well, so they can learn from each other, reuse materials that have been working in one market, and that could be reused in other markets as well.
Yes. One thing to note here is that if you are doing the traditional way, which means that you take in key people from different departments, you're normally, in a B2B perspective, ends up with this monstrosity to a project where everyone wants to have a product at the end that they can utilize for their business as well. Instead of actually doing some sort of disruptive way internally, where you actually apply a small team, starting off with this minimum value product that grows over time, and then you start involving different departments to collaborate with you. That's where we see the real growth happening.
And another thing as well, for some years ago, or a lot of years ago, or maybe still, the ownership sometimes of the e-commerce has been in the IT department. That is changing quite a lot. So maybe it's the CMO or the sales organization that actually owns it, and that is also dependent on organization. But for example, it's more and more the e-commerce is falling under the marketing part today.
Yep, good, thank you. Just another question, and it's about if we will share the recording, and yes, we will. You will get an email with that, and also you will get the slides, so that will be taken care of. And then we just get some sharing here. Thank you for good content. So if you don't have any other questions from you listening in, I think that's it for today. So it doesn't seem like more questions are coming in. So thank you so much, Dan and David, for this presentation. I think it was really valuable, a lot of good content. It's something you can listen to over and over again, I think, to get some. But we also encourage everybody who are listening in to reach out if you have other questions. We're here for you. Both contact us at Litium or contact Columbus to get more information, etc. And you will get this email from us during the day or tomorrow morning. Do you want to add?
Yeah, and thank you from us as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day until we see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.